Hello guys, and welcome back to the channel. This is Precious Styling, and on this channel I share beginner friendly sewing videos and fashion related content. In today's video I show you how to cut and sew this beautiful dress without a hassle. So without delay, let's dive right into the video. As you can see, I have ruled the starting line which represents my shoulder, and from this line I'm going to begin taking all my vertical measurements. So first things first, I'm starting from my shoulder to my chest line at 9 inches, and I've ruled a line there. I would also measure from my shoulder to my bust point there at 11 inches. I've also ruled a line there. I would also measure down from my shoulder to my under bust line at 14 inches, and I've also ruled a line there. I would also measure from my shoulder to my waistline at 16 inches, and I've also ruled a line there. And finally, I would measure from my shoulder to the hem of the blouse section at 22 inches. Okay, so the remaining part you see under there will just be my hemming allowance. Now there are three key areas I want you to note on this pattern paper. Okay, I call them my focal points. You see this under bust line here is one of the focal points. You see this waistline there, it's one of the focal points, and you see the hem of the dress, that line where the blouse section ends, it's also a focal point. If I wasn't doing a tutorial, I wouldn't even rule my bust line, chest line, and all those other things. I may just rule the starting line which represents my shoulder, but I wouldn't do the others. But for tutorial sake, I decided to rule that line, okay, because the main focus would actually be this under bust line, the waistline, the hem line, and may include maybe the shoulder line. And from here we'll be drafting a basic bodice pattern. I wouldn't go into details on how to draft a basic bodice pattern because I always do this on this channel. So if you do not know how to draft a basic bodice pattern, I will be leaving a link in the description box so you can go back and watch that video. So I'll be speeding this up. Now that I've drafted the pattern up to this point, so at this bust line I will be taking my nipple to nipple measurement. My nipple to nipple measurement is 9 inches. 9 divided by 2 is 4.5. So I'll mark that 4.5 on the bust line, on the waistline, and on the hem line. I'm going to be using a ruler to connect these points together. However, the line below the waist is going to be 5 inches long. And now I'll be taking my waist dart. So on this waistline here, I'm going to be coming out on both sides of the dart line by 0.75 inch, and I'm going to mark that on both sides of this line. And I'm going to come down from my bust line by 1 inch, and I'm going to connect this point to the other point I made earlier, thereby creating my dots. And I'll be taking my underbust dart now. So at this underbust line, I'm going to be coming out on the dart line at the underbust by 0.5 inch, okay, from the dart line now, not from the initial straight line. So I'm going to come out by 0.5 inch on both sides of the dart line, and I'm going to be connecting it to the waist dart. Right now I'll be imputing the value of my underbust circumference divided by 4, and I'll be imputing that on the underbust line. I will take the measurement of the dart I have at the underbust line, and I'll replace that dart, and I'm going to be adding 2 inches allowance. Next up is my waist dart. So I'm going to be taking my waist circumference divided by 4, and I will impute the value on the waistline. I will measure the dart I took, and I'm going to replace that dart at the waistline, and I'm also going to be adding 2 inches allowance as well. And I'll head on to my hem line. So I'm going to be using my hip circumference to determine the width of this part. So my hip circumference divided by 4, I would impute that value there, and I'm going to be adding 2 inches allowance to that. And now I will be connecting these 3 points together. So I'll use my ruler to just connect these points. So at the sharp angle here, I will be making a curve, okay, just like the style inspiration. So I'm going to come up by 2 inches, and I'm going to connect that to somewhere around the nipple to nipple line at the hem of this pattern. I would be extending the dot line to the hem, and I will be adding 0.5 inch stitching allowance to the hem as well. At this underbust line, I will be coming in by 0.5 inch. I would be coming down on the dot line by 0.75 inch, and then I will be connecting this point I made towards the side of the pattern, okay, the side without the allowance yet. That is where I'll be connecting these 3 points I marked. I would proceed to cut out my pattern, but before I do that, I'm going to measure the distance from my new underbust to the shoulder. Okay, so from this point I'm going to measure to my shoulder. Okay, and when I measured it, what I got was 14.5 inches. So make sure you take this measurement before you cut it out. Now I can begin cutting out the pattern. This would be my front pattern. I would proceed to draft the back pattern. For the back pattern, I have ruled my hemline, as you can see, and I've also ruled my zipper allowance line. I wouldn't begin drafting this pattern from the shoulders. I will begin from the chest down to the hemline. Since the length of the blouse section of the dress is 22 inches, I'm going to be placing that 22 inch mark on the hemline, and from there I would begin taking all my vertical measurements. So I'm going to begin with my waistline. My waistline is 16 inches. I'm going to mark that there. I'm also going to go to my underbust line at 14 inches. I'm also going to mark that there, and I'll proceed to my chest line at 9 inches, and I'll mark that there as well. I'm going to do that on the other side of the pattern paper so that I can rule my lines. So now that I've done that, I'm going to be taking my nipple to nipple measurement of 4.5 inches. Note, I'm going to be taking it from the zipper allowance line, okay? I'm not taking it from the initial beginning of the pattern paper. I'm just going to take it from the zipper allowance line. So I'm going to mark that on the hemline. I'm also going to mark that on the chest line. So this here is my chest line, this here is my underbust line, and this here is my waistline. I'll be connecting these points together. The length of the dot line below the waist is 6 inches, which falls at the hemline, and I'm also going to be coming down from the chest line by 1 inch. At the waistline, I'm going to be coming out on both sides of the dot line by 0.5 inch. And I'll be connecting all the points we made earlier to create my dot. I will be giving a dot to the center back in order to eliminate the zipper bulge. This would eventually be my zipper dot. So I'm just going to come in at the waistline by 1 inch. And from there, I'll be connecting it to the chest line and the hemline. At the chest line, I will be coming out on the zipper allowance line by 1.25 inches. Same thing I'm going to do on the new zipper allowance line. At the waist, I will do the same thing at the hemline, and I'll connect these 3 points together. This would be my new zipper allowance, and this dot taken would eliminate any resulting zipper bulge that may occur when we stitch up the dress. I want you to take note of something. I do not have any business with the chest line and the upper part, okay? I just wanted to take a proper dot, and that was why I ruled the chest line like I said earlier. So right now, all I'm going to be focusing on would be my underbust line, my waistline, and my hemline. Those were the 3 focal points I told you about. So from this point now that I marked, I'm going to be taking my underbust circumference divided by 4. Okay, I'm going to mark that there. I would replace the dot, at the underbust line, and I'm going to be adding 2 inches allowance to that. I would proceed to the waist and take my waist circumference divided by 4. I would replace the waist that I took earlier, and I'm going to be adding 2 inches allowance to that. At the hemline, I will be taking my hip circumference divided by 4, and I'll be adding 2 inches allowance to that. Now I will connect these 3 points together with my ruler. At this point here, I'm going to come up by 2 inches, and I'm going to be creating a curve just like I did at the front. And I'll be giving 0.5 inch allowance to the bottom of my pattern. And I'll just cut this out. This is how the back pattern looks like. This here is how the front and the back pattern looks like. I will go ahead and transfer these patterns to my fabric and lining, and then we'll proceed to the next stage. These are the fabrics I'll be using to make my dress. This one here is 45 inches wide, that is about a trouser length, and this other one here is half a yard. To comfortably make this dress in the same length as mine, you will need between 1.5 to 2 yards in one fabric design and about half a yard in the other fabric design. This is the zipper I would be using to finish my dress. So backstage, I already cut out my fabric and lining. At the top, I left 0.5 inch, but at the sides, I didn't leave any allowance because the pattern already contains allowance. So this is the lining I already cut out, and I did similar thing for all the pattern pieces. So I'll take off the patterned paper to reveal the fabric, and I already put chalk marks on the fabric to differentiate the wrong and the right side. So now I would begin pinning this fabric together just like it is on the pattern. Okay, so I'm just going to place one side to another in conformity with the pattern paper, and then I'll begin pinning. So I'm going to do this for all the fabric pieces as well as the lining, as you would see. And when I'm done pinning, I'll take this to the sewing machine to stitch up the areas I have pinned. And guys, if you've watched this far, please do not leave without giving the video a like. And if you have been watching my videos without subscribing, please do well to subscribe to the channel so you wouldn't miss out on future tutorials that will come up on this channel. So I have stitched the separated fabrics into one whole piece, and this is how it looks like. So at the back you can see the stitch lines. I have already given it a press to flatten out that seam. I did same for the lining as well. This is the part I will be using for my sleeve, and as you can see, I have merged both fabrics together in order to give the style a twist, and I have pressed open the seams where I merged both fabrics. So right now, remember the measurement we took from our shoulder to the under bust area. Remember that was 14.5 inches, so I will just be adding 0.5 inch to that to make it 15 inches to cater for my stitching allowance. Now this fabric is on fold. If I multiply that 15 inches into 2, I'm going to have a 30 inches wide piece of fabric. Okay, and the length of this fabric is 15 inches, as you can see. So I'll be notching the midsection of the top and bottom in order to determine the middle of the fabric. I have this strip of fabric that is as long as the length of the fabric. This is around 15 inches long. This strip of fabric is 2.5 inches wide, and by the time I fold in the edges of this fabric by 0.5 inch on both sides, it will reduce to 1.5 inches as width. Backstage, I already folded in the edges by 0.5 inch, and you can see how it is at the front. So now I'm going to be placing this fabric at the mid part where we notched. So I'm just going to pin this strip of fabric on that midsection from top to bottom. Having secured this strip of fabric with pins, I'm going to take it to the sewing machine and I'm going to stitch on the sides. Okay, I'm going to stitch on both sides and I would come back and show you what I did. I have stitched it down, as you can see. So let me bring it up close so you can see that I have stitched this down neatly. So I would be marking the midsection of this strip of fabric. Okay, so I'll just use my chalk to mark out the midsection and I'm going to roll a line on the fabric from top to bottom. Now that we've marked out the midsection, I will take it to the sewing machine and stitch on top of this line in order to create 2 compartments for our loops. This is how it looks like after stitching it, 2 separate compartments. Backstage, I already cut out 4 strings. This is just a bias tape that I folded in 2, and this is 16 inches long. You can make yours longer, okay? You can make it more than 16 inches if you want to. As it is, I will begin inserting these strings into each compartment. I would attach a safety pin to the head of the string, and I'm going to insert it through each channel till it gets to the top. Later on, I will be tying up the ends of the string into a knot so that it doesn't fall through the channel. Okay, so I'll just do this and fix in all the strings. As you can see, I have inserted the drawstrings and I have knotted the bottom of the strings so that it doesn't fall through the channels. So I also hemmed the base of the sleeve area like this. I would be placing one sleeve on the other, right sides facing each other, and once they are aligned, I will go to the edge of the fabric and just pin this halfway. Then I'm going to measure how covered I want the center front to be. Okay, so I'm just going to measure between 5.5 to 6 inches. I will measure that along the sides of the fabric, and I'm going to mark that there, and I'm going to go to the other side and measure 1 inch. That would be what I would use to stitch up the fabric together. I'm going to be stitching it with 1 inch allowance. So in the event that you do not want your neckline to plunge very well, you can go up by say 8 or 9 inches. I'm just giving an illustration here. Okay, so you can go up by that inch, and then you're going to have a very high neckline. So I have stitched along the line, as you can see, and I would open this up, and as you can see, I have a moderate neckline, not too high and not too low. So this is how you can see that the shape of the neckline is already forming. So I'm going to flip this piece to the wrong side to expose the stitching allowance. So you see the stitching allowance of 1 inch. I'm going to open it up and I'm going to be hemming it from the front part to the back part. Okay, so I'm just going to use that allowance of 1 inch to hem it twice inwards. Okay, and I'll do that and then I'll show you the results. After folding and hemming the neckline, this is what I have. At the bottom of this piece of fabric, I will be making a very loose stitch from one part to the other, and I'm going to use this to make my gathers. Okay, so I'm going to go to the other ends, which would be the part for the back, and I'm still going to make this loose stitch and gather it up. I have made a loose stitch at the base of the back part of the sleeve, and I left a thread hanging out. So now I'll begin gathering this up just the way we do our normal gathers. I'm done making gathers at the back part of my sleeve, and I'll do same for the front piece. I've brought forward the back piece, and I'm going to mark out the 2 inches we included when we're drafting out our pattern. At the center back, I'm also going to be marking out the 1.25 inches we left as our zipper allowance, as well as 0.5 inch for some little distance between the zipper and the sleeve. So in total, I marked out 1.75 inches from the center back. At the front piece, I'm also going to be marking the 2 inches allowance we included on the pattern. I will align the gathered edge we made earlier to the under bust area. Starting from that point I marked to the other point. Now I'll do this right size facing the fabric. I will mark the midpoint so as to get a uniform coverage while I pin. Now I'm done. I will take it to the sewing machine and stitch that area. For the back piece, I will align the gathers from one point I marked to the other point. And I'll place the lining on the fabric just as it should. I will pin this down because I'll be taking it to the sewing machine to sew the top and the sides. I will do the same thing for the front part as well. I have stitched the areas I pinned earlier, and this is what it looks like now. So if I flip this to the back, you can see how the back looks like. I went ahead to iron this. This is how the back piece also looks like. I have already folded in the zipper allowance. As you can see, I did that with my pressing iron. I would align the sides of the front and back piece, and then I'm going to take my body measurement. I will take my bust circumference divided by 2. I will take my waist circumference divided by 2, as well as my hip circumference divided by 2. I will connect all these points I marked, and I'm going to later take it to the sewing machine to stitch it down. I have joined the front and back piece together. As you can see, this is how it is at the front, and this is how it also looks like at the back. This is the part of the fabric I'll be using to make the skirt part. I have also merged this fabric to give me a longer piece, and this fabric measures 16.5 inches long, as you can see, and 53 inches wide. So this the width of this fabric is about 1.5 yard, while the length is 16.5 inches. I have 2 pieces of this fabric measurement, one for the front and the other for the back. So in total, I have about 3 yards wide fabric for the width of the skirt. I'm going to stitch at the top of this area so I can make gathers. I'm going to do this for the 2 sets of fabric, and I'm going to attach both fabrics together to just give me one piece. I have made my gathers, and right now I'm going to be aligning these gathers to the hem of the blouse. So I'm just going to pin it down so I can take it to the sewing machine and stitch that area together. I have attached the skirts to the blouse, and this is how it looks like. So I'm going to turn this to the back because I'm going to attach my zipper to the dress as it is. So I'm just going to close it up, and from the bottom I'm going to stitch up to where I want my zipper to stop at, and this is the zipper, so I'm going to be attaching the zipper. I will do that and then show you the outcome. I have attached my zipper and this is how it looks like. There is something important you need to do. You see the sides, if you leave it open, the sides of your boobs may be exposed and you do not want that to happen. So I'm going to turn this dress to the back and I'm going to align that area. Okay, so once that is done, I'm going to pin down the sides together and I'm going to measure upwards about 4 inches. Okay, so once I measure that 4 inches, I'm going to connect the line we used in shaping up the blouse to that 4 inches that I marked. Okay, so I'm going to stitch it, make sure the stitch is very secure, and that would cover up the opening we should have had at the side. So after this is done, we are practically done with the dress, and this is how the dress looks like. Do let me know if you will be recreating this dress or if you've already made yours, and if you did, how did it turn out? And guys, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, do not forget to give it a like. If you're yet to subscribe to the channel, do well to subscribe to the channel. Feel free to ask questions and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.